Hi everyone and welcome to Brick Arena. If you're new to the channel, my name's Keith. I'm a full-time Lego seller selling on Bricklink, Brickowl and eBay. And on this channel I share a weekly vlog covering my day-to-day processes and practices in selling Lego as a full-time income. Now, a couple of weeks ago I asked watchers of the channel for questions, ready for a question and answer session, and I've gathered those questions together and tried to group them as best I can, and want to share them with you now. So first question up is one that I get asked quite often, and it comes from Tiny Bricks, and it's can you link to the parts for the coloured drawers? I need inserts, but I'm in Australia. So this is a question I get asked all the time. I recently did a store tour, and people often see these multicolored drawers that I use, and they really like the organization of them, particularly with the inserts in question. Now, these come from a company called Really Useful Products, and I'll share the description below. I've shared this in the past on other videos, but I will cover it again since it is a really common question. If you follow this link, you can see that there are a number of flags here for the various countries that you can buy the product from. I'm going to click on the UK flag because that's where I'm based, but if you're in Australia, you can click that. And the important thing to note here is that the drawers are known as storage towers, and when you come into the website, you can choose to build a storage tower from scratch using any of the parts involved. But the key thing to understand here is that I use scrapbook drawers, which are a different size to other drawers supplied by this company, and only the scrapbook drawers have a part that has the hobby tray insert, which are the inserts that I use. So down here under scrapbook drawers hobby tray, 15 section tray, they're £4.66 each, and you can simply buy as many of these as you want and get them delivered. Now, delivery costs can be a little expensive, so it's worth bulking up on your order where you can. But that's where the inserts come from. I was fortunate that they all came via the acquisition of my recent store purchase from the Brick Pickers UK store, but they're really easy to get hold of via this Really Useful Products company. Now the next question is also from Tiny Bricks, asking what's the best way to grow store and sales? Currently on around 45,000 parts, sales have slowed drastically. Well, I think, first of all, let's just mention the current state of the world with the economic crisis that seems to be hitting everybody, and I think that has impacted everybody's sales. So sales have been slow for people around the world. Now, you mentioned that you've only got 45,000 parts, and I say only, I don't mean to be, detrimental in that, but with 45,000 parts, you are going to see limited sales. And the best way to increase sales, of course, is to increase your inventory so that you've got more to sell, and in particular, more variety. So keep working on growing the store, keep working on growing the lot count, and sales will pick up, I'm sure. Now, we got quite a few questions on profitability kind of questions and taxation and how to record your expenses, etc. So we'll go through some of those. And the first one comes from KMHH1976. And they say, do you put a cost against all the brick pickers so you reduce the overall profits to the taxman? Now, What I think they're asking here is basically, am I recording the expense of buying the store acquisition that I bought? And the simple answer is yes, of course. You know, it's an expense. It's a business expense, just like buying any product or any piece of equipment. It's an expense that you record against your taxes. Now, in the case of this, this was quite a large sum of money, obviously, for a large store acquisition, and it may be that it's going to negatively impact your profit, so you end up with a negative profit possibly. But the way I would record this is through a director's loan. So it doesn't really matter whether you're a limited company or a sole trader. You can invest your own personal money into the business. So it's effectively a loan into the business, which you would record the loan coming in, and then there's an expense side of that as well. So if this cost, for instance, £10,000, you'd have a director's loan coming in of £10,000 and an expense going out of £10,000. But this comes back to the benefits as well of having an accountant, and I really can't stress enough the benefits. I've literally just had my tax calculation for this year submitted to HMRC, and the amount of money that the accountant is saving me is far more than I pay them per year to do my taxes. So strongly recommend getting an accountant if you don't already have one. Even though doing a self-assessment may seem really easy, and it can be, I still think that there's real benefits in having an accountant. Now, they also ask me, how do I calculate, or what is the cost, or is it just a set price per item based on the overall price you bought it for? So what I think they're asking here is, if I buy a set, a Lego set, and put it into my store, a Lego set has a significant number of pieces in there, and I think they're asking me, how do I allocate a cost to those parts and pieces? And the simple question is, I don't, and you don't need to. All you need to record for your tax purposes is your incomings and outgoings. Now, I operate on a cash basis, so I'm able to just look at the revenues, the income streams coming in, and the expenses going out, and the difference between the two is your profit. So it's really easy. If I have £100 in income and I have £50 of expense, then my profit is £50, and that's what I report. There's no need to record any cost for your inventory at all. I have heard in the past other people, including people with accountants, have said that their accountants insist they have to put a cost against the inventory. Working on a cash basis, you certainly don't need to, and it's not something I've ever done. Now, we've got a question from Minnie and Munchkin as well, also related to profitability. And they say, Merry Christmas, love the videos, long time viewer. My question would be, how on earth do Bricklink sellers work out profitability? Appreciate your profit is private and not looking for exact numbers, but more how you actually calculate cost of goods sold, given a single box may have hundreds of pieces. Do you accurately associate cost of goods with revenue, or do you use some sort of averaging method? I think I've just answered this one. Again, it's cash accounting. Don't need to record the profitability of a set. Don't try, in my opinion at least, don't try and work out how profitable one set is, because it will just drive you crazy. You won't be able to track it, because obviously you're going to sell some of the parts over time. You're not going to sell them all at once. Some might sell this week, some next week, some next year. So you can't tell how much you're selling each of the parts for and how many of them you've even sold. So you can't attempt to work out the profitability of one set in that way. Again, going back to cost basis, simply look at what you're spending versus what income you've got, and that's your business profitability. The next question comes from Tom and Games, and they say, in addition to the store layout video you posted, which was great, could you show us how you make a spreadsheet to keep track of what was sold? I started the store in September and I'm struggling a lot with that aspect of the business. Please consider. So until quite recently, I was using QuickBooks, and QuickBooks was great because you could link each of your accounts to it. So I would link in my bank account, my Stripe account, my PayPal account, and all of the transactions would just flow in, and I could categorize them as different account types, etc., and see what my profitability was. Now the difficulty with that was that when I come to submit my tax return, it wasn't quite recorded in the way that the accountant would have liked. So the main problem was that things like Stripe weren't reporting the sale correctly because they were only showing me the portion of the sale that I got minus the fees. They weren't showing the actual sale fee, and it all just got overly complex in my opinion. So I went back to a simple spreadsheet approach, which is what I'd done in previous years. So what you're seeing here is my spreadsheet that I use. So I've cleared out all of the figures, so there's no actual figures in here for you. But in the UK, the tax year runs from April to April. So we start in the month of April here. This first tab is a summary sheet which shows each month's income and each month's expenses. And then down below it will show the income, the expenses, and then it will show a net income, i.e. your profit after reducing the expenses from the income. And then on here we've got multiple tabs, one tab for each month, and then I simply have a date and a description. So what I do in here is I import all of my sales from Bricklink, Brickowl and eBay into each line in here. And then I record the value of those sales into the different columns here. So I have a column for Bricklink, a column for Brickowl, a column for eBay, a column for Facebook, and a column for YouTube. And I like to do that because it gives me then a different overall income for each of those streams. And then this will then work out a total income here across each of those streams. Now I also use the same sheet to record my mileage because mileage is a sort of tax deductible. So I record how many miles I do each day and going to the post office, etc. And I think you can recover cost at, I can't remember what it is. I think it's about 46 pence a mile or something like that. Then to the right here is where I record all of my expenses, and I simply put a description, a date for that expense, and then I have again a number of columns for the different type of expense. So I have postage, fees, office supplies, cost of goods for resale. So that's really when I'm buying product and things to sell, refunds, and then other things. And again, that just allows me to have a total spend at the bottom on, for instance, how much have I spent on office supplies, how much have I spent on fees, etc. And then at the bottom, that will total the expenses. And then over here, we'll have the net income for that month. And what these will do is, as each month here fills up, it will fill up the summary sheet on the front. So you'll then see your tax or your profits for the year. Now, I've found this the simplest method. It's all you need if you're a sole trader, which is what I am. And at the end of the year, I just submit this spreadsheet to my accountant and they do the rest, and it works really, really well. Now I've got another question here from Mark Dixon, who says, "Hi Keith, love the vlogs. A few questions for the Q&A. A few vlogs back you mentioned you sell minifigures on eBay with accessories and Bricklink without accessories at the same time. And if the figure sells on Bricklink, you put all the accessories in a pot. Well, the question is, would it be worth listing these minifigures on Bricklink with the accessories in the comments, and you could ask more for them, more money, I presume he means. I've seen other sellers doing this. This would get rid of the pot. I don't particularly like this idea. I do this to a lesser extent in some cases where I've got a used figure, for instance, and let's say it comes with a bow, and I may include in the comments that it comes with a bow. The problem is there's no easy way in Bricklink to differentiate your item to another person. So if you're going to include all of the accessories, then you're going to inflate your price to cover those accessories, which is going to push you further down the list by price, which is what most people are looking at. And so if you're quite way down the list, because your price is higher, people aren't going to look at you. They're going to go and pay the cheaper price for a figure. They're not going to go into every entry and check the comments and say, does this come with accessories? At least not in my experience. It may depend if there's only a few listings for that figure, so there's only a few sellers. People might go through, check the comments to see, particularly on used, to see what the quality is like, etc. But I simply just relist the accessories separately if it sells on eBay or Bricklink rather. So each to their own. Everybody does things a little bit differently, and this would in a way be a little bit less work, maybe adding the accessories into the Bricklink entry, but as I say, because it's not easy to see what you're including with that sale in Bricklink, I choose not to do that, to be honest. Now, he does ask another question about the store purchase, and says, with the intake of the new stock, your sales have gone up. Would you say at the moment that the profit has gone up enough to cover the cost of the rent of the container? Or will the profit start to show when the container is empty? Or have you got a good deal on the container? Personally, I've been looking at trying to rent a workspace down here on the south coast, and prices are very high. Now, before I answer this, I'll also just show you another question from Eric Place on a similar topic, saying, glad you're still having enough space. The second room for box sets must be a real lifesaver. Could you perhaps show us that at some point? But how much do you pay for your storage per month? And have you got a rough idea when you can empty it completely and stop renting it? So let's take Mark's part of the question first. So have sales gone up as a result of having the container? Yes, I think they have. Is it worth me having the container? I think it is. I wouldn't necessarily say that I've sat down and worked it out, to the penny. Is it absolutely worth having the container? I see it as a necessary evil. In terms of buying the store, if I was ever going to buy the store, I had to have a container or had to have somewhere to put the inventory. I don't have the space on my own premises to store that amount of Lego, so there was no real option. Now, the container costs me £135 a month. And I guess you'll just have to take that number and do some mental sums and think, is that really worth it? It is an overhead for selling. It's a fairly modest overhead when I look at some sellers who've got rental units that they're working out of. You mentioned, Mark, that you're looking at a workspace. Nowhere would you get a workspace for £135 a month. I've seen some other people on Instagram recently buying commercial retail premises in my area, actually. And I can't imagine that they're getting that for less than probably 700 a month at least. I do know other sellers in the past that have paid nearly £1,000 a month, and I don't think that worked out for them too well. It's so hard to make sure that you're recovering the cost. So you have to think about that. For me, the container cost is minimal. £135 a month is really next to nothing. So I don't have a problem with it. I think I'm making that amount of money back by the amount I've been able to add to the store. Now, what's my long-term aim for the container? Will I ever get rid of it? I'm not so sure, to be honest. Certainly not for a long time. My aim is to reduce the container size. So at the moment, I'm paying for what is it? I think a 40-foot container, and I would hope that I can probably in time reduce that by half. Now that might be in the next 6 months or maybe the next year, and so the overhead would reduce. I'm guessing to around the £70 mark from 135. So that would be a good saving and a good help. But I do think that it's worth having the container, for me at least. Now, on to the next question from Rich Watts, who says, "A very happy Christmas and New Year to you and the family, Keith. Hugely appreciative of you doing these blogs each week. For the Q&A, in one of your very early Bricklink videos, you talk about having a strategy. Without going into the numbers, what's your strategy now as a full-time seller? For example, do you aim for a take-home salary each month or just getting what you can month by month?" So, I think that strategy changes over time, dependent on circumstances. When I started the Bricklink store that I have was as a part-time seller. And the aim at that time was to simply generate enough side income to purchase more Lego for myself and for the store. So anything I earned was ploughed back into the store, growing the inventory, growing my, I guess what turned out to be investment sets, because I never built many of them, and I resold them for a profit. So initially, as a part-time seller, that was the strategy. Now, as you move into full-time, things, as I've said several times, become very, very different, because you have suddenly now got to pay every single bill out of your earnings from the Lego business. And frankly, some months it's just not possible. You just don't make enough. Now, this is going to depend very much on personal circumstances. How much do you need for a month? So you need to sit down and think, how much do I need each month to pay my bills, pay my rent, pay my mortgage, pay my food bills, put fuel in the car, all of those things. How much do you need a month to get by? And I looked at that when I went full time. But one of the things with me when I went full time was that I was made redundant at the time, so I had a redundancy pot which could act as a buffer. So I knew exactly what I needed each month to pay the bills, etc. I had a sum of money that I aimed for each month, and if I had a shortfall in that, then I would use my fallback of the redundancy money to act as a buffer. And so, in answer to your question, I guess I have and still have a kind of take home salary in mind, and I'm not going to divulge exactly what that is, but it's quite high. And that's what I aim for. I don't always make it. Sometimes if it's a bad month, I don't make that amount. And I have to, supplement it some other way. But that's what I aim for. Now, in terms of income, though, in general, really, you just have to take what you get, month by month. You sell as much as you possibly can, and you might change your strategy to make those sales. So, as we come to the winter months, and it's getting near Christmas, you might ramp up eBay a little bit to maximize your sales there. For me, one of the things that's changed again in terms of strategy, as being part of a full time seller approach, has been one of the things that I touched on in my yearly review was cash flow. You don't always have the free money to go and buy lots and lots of new Lego when all of the deals are on. You maybe can't do that. So you may shift, and I've shifted, I guess, to going more towards used and using used bulk to sell. It's a cheaper way into the business, I think. You can buy bulk Lego relatively cheaply, but the big downside is the time that it takes to sort and list those used parts. There's no inventories, it's all hard work and is very time consuming. So strategy has changed over time. I do have a fixed amount of income that I look for each month, but whether you get that or not is another thing. Anything above that, then I might plow back into the business. Next question up is from Andrew Horner, and he says, do you think Brickowl could be better advertised, and would it be able to compete with Bricklink? I certainly think it could be better advertised. I don't see really anywhere Brickowl being mentioned that much. I don't really know, if I'm honest, how people manage to stumble across it if you're, not a seller. I don't see it advertised. I certainly think it could compete to a degree if it could build the user base more and did have more marketing behind it. It's certainly an attractive platform in lots of ways, and the way it looks and feels. I can understand why some users prefer it as a platform to search for parts and to buy from it. But I think one of the things with Bricklink is having that Lego brand behind it as well, whether people recognize that or not. I think that's a big thing for some people probably. But Brickowl just doesn't seem to have quite the global appeal. Although I do get lots of international orders on Brickowl, having said that. So could it compete? I don't see why it couldn't compete better, but I certainly think it could be marketed a lot more than it is. Now, Andrew also asks, would it be possible for you to do a live blog, say go to the storage container, pick one tub of used Lego, and just while you're answering questions, sort through a tub and see what you might find? I think it would be quite interesting also if it could be done during the day as viewers could watch it later. So, live streaming is something that I have considered and am contemplating doing in addition to the vlog content. I've said a couple of times that I'm looking to do some extra type content outside of the vlog format, this being one of them. And live streaming is something I've researched a bit. I've looked at the software to do it, and it's really just taking the plunge and going for it. I don't know how well I'd cope in trying to read comments and talk constantly and be sorting, but it's something I'm willing to give it a try, and we may see that in the coming weeks. Paul Weston asks a question about buying a store. Would love to know how you organise such a large purchase when historic trusted companies aren't involved. How do you transfer money to this value? What protection do you have if this was actually a scam or undervalued purchase? Plus, it will take months to check. What have you had big differences to what you thought you had bought? Would love to know in case I want to buy or even sell myself one day. So, the first thing to say on the buying the store topic is that I intend to create a couple of videos around this content. One where I go over my criteria, if you like, for buying a store, some of the things that I think you should check when making the purchase. And also, I'd like to maybe use my own acquisition as a kind of study case, if you like, on how to practically do it and how to implement it. So expect a couple of videos on those topics in the near future. So I don't want to go into too much depth in answering this question. I can see that there would be some concern, especially if large sums of money are being exchanged. The only thing I can really say about my experience with the store that I purchased was that I actually purchased from someone I knew very well. I had built a level of trust way in advance of any purchase of the store, and so I was able to be very confident really in what I was being told, what was being shown, the level of information that was given to me. Would I have been concerned if I was making that same purchase from someone else? Yeah, I'd have certainly been a lot more concerned. I'm not sure it would have stopped me, but I certainly take on board some of the points that you raise. It is difficult to validate that inventory is what the seller says it is. All you can do is use your eyes, ask for lots of photos, and inspect as much as you can, and you just have to make a rough estimate and say, does this all look like it's worth what's being asked of it? And yeah, I'll go into much more detail in the videos that are to come. Well, the next question is from Minifig Man, and they say, hi, I'm getting into selling on Bricklink and Brickowl and just got my first draws today. What program are you using to list the items and configure both Brickowl and Bricklink? Also, what have you done to see and what draws your parts are in? Thanks a lot. I've been watching your channel for a couple of weeks now. I think I'm starting to get the hang of it. Not only do I learn something from it, but it's also very entertaining. Thanks a lot, Mads. So there are two main programs that I think you need to be looking into. The first one is Brickstore. And Brickstore is available for Windows, macOS, and Linux, and it's a third-party application which has a database behind it of every part, minifigure, and Lego set that you could ever want to look at. And it allows you to integrate with your own Brickowl store and upload parts to Bricklink. You can also update your existing inventory, so you can very quickly download what's called a BSX file of your own inventory, and you can make changes to it, to pricing, quantities, things like that, and then update that inventory back to Bricklink. So it's a really good tool for managing inventory and for adding inventory to your own Bricklink store, whether that be by going through used parts and adding them manually into a file ready for upload, or for parting out existing new sets. And you can use the part out function to break down the inventory of that set, add your pricing, and upload that to Bricklink. So it's an absolutely invaluable tool in my opinion. I couldn't work without it. I've never ever done parting out or uploading of parts via Bricklink directly in the web browser. This is just so much better. Now, the other tool in question that you need to be looking at is Brick Freedom. And Brick Freedom is my tool of choice, at least. There are other options, and I wrote a blog article that I'll link to where I looked at a few different syncing options. So the purpose of this is to sync your inventory between Bricklink and Brickowl. So you use Bricklink as the master inventory typically, and you sync that inventory with all pricing, quantities, etc. across to your Brickowl store. Now, there's several applications that allow you to do this, and in my blog article I cover the three main ones, which are BrickSync, which is a free application that you can install on a machine. It's very unfriendly though, and it has to be run on a machine constantly, so you need a machine running in the background, but it is free. And I used to use that for years, to be honest, and was very happy with it for a long time. Then there are other tools out there that are mainly Brickpacker and my preferred choice, Brick Freedom, which give you a sort of web interface and allow you to sync your data between sites. And they'll also, in Brick Freedom's case, give you other functionality such as picking sheets and reporting and things like that. So again, an absolutely invaluable tool. And I have a link below which will give you 14 days free of any fees if you want to use that link and sign up for Brick Freedom. Now, I did get a few non-Lego related questions that I'll just whiz through quickly because I realised these aren't typically what people are tuning in for. But Andrew Horner asks quickly, will the borough go up? So the borough is referring to Middlesbrough Football Club, which is the football team that I support. And my answer to Andrew is, yeah, I think we will. I think we'll go up. If not this season, then next. It'll be through the playoffs probably, not through automatic promotion, but I think we've got a very good chance of going up. We're certainly doing very well at the moment. Now, Heavy Metal Vegan, which is a great name for a user, asks, given the guitar on the wall, what's your favourite Dream Theater album and favourite John Petrucci solo? Love the channel, keep up the hard work. Now, Heavy Metal Vegan is referring to this green guitar that I have on my wall. which is a John Petrucci signature model. John Petrucci is the guitarist for the band Dream Theater, who are a kind of progressive rock metal act, I guess. And this is a really hard question. To be honest with you, I would say anything from the Images and Words album. I just love that album. That was the album that got me into the band, and I'm sort of ducking the question a little bit, but really anything from that album would be a good choice. Another question from Mark. On the 5th of January is the 10th anniversary of what? Hint, I travelled a long way to watch it. Now, knowing that Mark was based on the South Coast and saying he travelled a long way to watch it, I'm guessing he travelled for a football match. And I think the 5th of January was an anniversary that wouldn't be important to Borough fans, but might be to Hastings fans, because they're a small football club who played Middlesbrough, which would have been a big event for them, I assume, at that time. And unfortunately, they got beat by Middlesbrough that day. So I think that's what Mark's talking about, but I'm sure he'll let me know if I'm wrong. So I hope you found some of those questions and answers useful. There's a few more, but that I just didn't have time for, unfortunately. Maybe another session. If you've got any further questions or need any clarification on anything I mentioned in this video, then leave a comment down below. And as always, if you found it useful, do give me the thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. There's lots more content coming, and hopefully you find the weekly vlogs of me selling Lego full-time of some use. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.